The military transport ship Resolute Dawn drifted through the stars, its hull scarred from old battles. Inside, rows of soldiers sat in silence as they approached Titan VII, a human outpost under constant threat from the alien Vor Dominion. Among them sat a girl who looked far too young to be there. Her name was Lena Ardent, only 12 years old. She wore a uniform several sizes too large, the sleeves rolled up to her elbows. A datapad rested on her knees filled with tactical charts and formation codes. Every few seconds she adjusted something on the screen, a small detail that most soldiers would overlook. Her eyes were calm and focused, unlike the nervous chatter of those around her. Across the cabin, two Marines whispered, "Look at her," one muttered. "Barely out of school and they call her a soldier? Maybe she's the mascot," the other laughed quietly. "Someone's little sister got lost." Lena heard them but said nothing. She was used to it. Ever since she joined the Stellar Defense Corps, everyone had looked at her the same way and with disbelief or amusement. A child in a war uniform. It made no sense to them, but Lena hadn't joined by accident. She'd been tested, trained, and certified. Her simulation scores broke records. She could predict ship movements like chess pieces, calculate plasma trajectories in her head, and see patterns in chaos that even AI systems couldn't detect. She wasn't a soldier of muscle. She was a soldier of mind. Still, to the others, she was just a child. When the ship landed on Titan VII, the recruits were greeted by the harsh winds of the planet. The sky was a dull orange and the air smelled faintly of iron. Soldiers hurried between bunkers while sirens wailed in the distance. It wasn't a welcoming sight for a new recruit. A tall officer, Captain Varen, stood waiting for them. His uniform was spotless despite the dust storms. He looked over the group with a cold, assessing gaze. "You are not tourists," he said sharply. "You are soldiers of humanity. Titan VII is the frontier, and the Vor are one mistake away from breaking through. You will follow orders, no questions asked." Then his eyes fell on Lena. The corner of his brow lifted slightly. "And you? What are you supposed to be? Our morale mascot?" A few soldiers snickered. Lena stood straight and saluted. "Recruit Lena Ardent, Tactical Division, sir." Varen's expression remained unreadable. "You're barely tall enough to reach the console." "With respect, sir," she replied, her voice steady. "I don't need to reach it. I just need to use it." For a moment, silence hung between them. Then, unexpectedly, Varan gave a short nod. "Confidence," he said. "Let's see if you can back it up." Over the next few days, Lena was assigned to the operations center, a room filled with screens, comlinks, and holographic maps of the surrounding sector. Most of the officers ignored her. They were too busy preparing for the next Vor assault to worry about a child analyst. Still, Lena studied everything she could. Enemy jump patterns, sensor data, energy signatures. At night, she slept on a small cot beside the hum of the main console. She didn't mind. She wanted to be close to the information. Data was her battlefield. One evening, she noticed something strange. Vor movements were too regular, almost predictable. They weren't trying to break through the defense line. They were positioning themselves, waiting. She ran the numbers 3 times, her fingers flying across the screen. Then she turned to the duty officer on shift. "Sir, the Vor aren't retreating. They're building a trap." The man barely looked up. "Go back to your quarters, kid. Leave tactics to the adults. But if they strike tomorrow, the outpost will be surrounded from 3 sides." "Enough," he interrupted. "You're here to learn, not to teach." Lena clenched her fists but said nothing. She returned to her console, saving her calculations just in case. If she was wrong, no one would remember. But if she was right, she hoped someone would listen before it was too late. The attack came before dawn. Explosions rocked the outpost, shaking walls and sending sparks across the command center. Alarms blared, and officers shouted orders that clashed with each other. Communications broke down within minutes. The Vor had cut off their signal network and surrounded the base exactly as Lena predicted. Captain Varan stormed into the control room, his arm bleeding from a nearby blast. "Who's in charge of outer defenses?" he demanded. "Major Dren," someone replied, "but we lost contact with his unit." Varen cursed under his breath. "We can't reestablish command." "I can," Lena said suddenly, standing up from her console. The captain turned toward her, stunned. "This is not a game, Ardent." "No, sir. It's strategy," she replied firmly. Give me access to the network. I can coordinate the defense lines. Varen hesitated. The room shook again as another explosion thundered outside. One of the officers shouted, "We're losing sectors 3 and 4. Lena looked him straight in the eye. "If you don't let me try, we'll lose them all." For a second, Varen saw something in her eyes. Not fear, not pride, but focus. The same calm certainty he'd seen in veteran commanders. He gave a quick nod. "Do it." Lena's fingers moved faster than the eye could follow. She linked surviving turrets, rerouted damaged drone channels, and established a short-range signal to coordinate isolated squads. Her voice, calm but urgent, came through the comm lines. "Alpha Squad, fall back behind Shield Line Delta. Bravo. Reroute through Maintenance Tunnel 9. Turrets 12 through 16, fire in 3-second intervals, not continuous." Soldiers on the ground heard her voice and obeyed. They didn't know who she was, only that her orders made sense. Slowly, the chaos began to turn into structure. Defense drones converged into tight formations, covering blind spots the Vor had used before. Within an hour, the human line stabilized. When a Vor assault team breached the western gate, Lena activated dormant mining mechs as improvised defense units. The machines rose from the dust, swinging hydraulic arms and forcing the aliens back. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. Captain Varen watched in disbelief. The child they had mocked was commanding like a veteran strategist. Hours later, the skies cleared. The Vor retreated, leaving behind wreckage and silence. The human outpost still stood, battered but unbroken. Soldiers stumbled into the courtyard, exhausted but alive. Varan approached Lena, who was sitting beside the flickering console. She looked tired but alert, her hands still trembling from adrenaline. "You saved us," he said quietly. "How did you know their pattern?" "I didn't," she answered softly. "I just listened to what the data was trying to tell us. The Vor follow logic. Humans, we adapt." For the first time, the captain smiled faintly. "Not bad, Commander," Lena blinked. "Commander? After what you just did, I think you've earned it, at least among this crew." Around them, soldiers gathered. The same ones who had laughed now nodded in respect. No one called her a child anymore. They called her Commander Ardent. As night fell over Titan 7, the stars shimmered faintly above the wounded outpost. Lena stood at the observation deck, staring at the sky. Somewhere out there, the Vor were planning their next move. She knew they'd come again, stronger, smarter, and angrier. But she wasn't afraid. She had faced war, disbelief, and ridicule, and turned it all into victory. For the first time, she truly understood what it meant to be human, to rise when no one expects it, to fight not with power but with purpose. And deep in the cold silence of space, a legend was beginning to form, the legend of the child warrior who commanded the stars. The news of Titan 7's survival spread through the Stellar Defense Corps faster than light. It was being called the impossible defense needed on a last stand turned into victory. But what shocked everyone wasn't the victory itself. It was who had led it, a 12-year-old girl, Commander Lena Ardent. At first, many officers thought it was a rumor, a tale soldiers told to boost morale. But then came the official report, signed by Captain Varen himself, detailing how the child recruit had taken command, reorganized defense systems, and saved the entire outpost. Within days, Lena's name was whispered across every fleet. Some said she was a genius. Others said she was a lucky child who got it right once. Either way, no one could ignore her anymore. Lena's transfer orders came a week later. She was reassigned from Titan 7 to the Command Training Fleet, orbiting Earth. It was the place where future leaders of humanity were shaped, admirals, tacticians, and fleet commanders. She was the youngest ever to be accepted. When she arrived, the academy halls were bright and filled with the quiet hum of holographic displays. Cadets from every colony walked past her, some in awe, some in disbelief. "Is that her?" one whispered. "The child commander from Titan 7? She looks so small." Lena ignored the whispers and focused on the massive hollow table in front of her. It displayed entire star systems, simulated battlefields, and enemy formations. This was her new playground, not of toys but of stars. Her assigned mentor, Captain Varen, greeted her at the central command deck. He had been promoted after the Titan 7 defense but had requested to stay close to her training. "Still keeping that calm face, I see," he said with a faint smile. Lena saluted. Trying to, sir. You'll need it. You're not fighting the Vor here. You're fighting pride, rank, and tradition. He was right. During her first strategy session, she was placed with 3 veteran cadets, older teenagers who already commanded training ships in simulation battles. The exercise was simple. Defend a convoy against an ambush. But as soon as Lena suggested a plan, one of them laughed. "Listen, kid," said Cadet Rin, a tall, confident boy with sharp features. "You might have fooled the field officers once, but this is real tactical training. Let the grown-ups handle it." Lena looked at the display calmly. "If you follow your current plan, the convoy will be destroyed in 9 minutes. The other cadet frowned. "What makes you so sure?" "Because the Vor never attack in a straight line," she explained. "They'll feint from the north, wait for your fleet to rotate, then strike from behind your carriers. If we use the asteroid field to hide decoy drones, they'll waste ammunition before the real strike even starts." They stared at her, unsure whether to laugh or argue. Finally, Rin shrugged. "Fine, let's test your theory." 9 minutes later, the simulation ended, with Lena's team winning completely. Rin's ship survived with minimal losses. The convoy reached its destination, and the Academy instructors were stunned. Captain Varen crossed his arms, watching from the observation deck. "I told you," he muttered under his breath. "She doesn't guess and she sees." In the following weeks, Lena trained harder than anyone. She studied every recorded Vor battle, every tactical mistake humans had ever made. She didn't just want to win battles. She wanted to understand them. While others rested, she stayed in the simulation chambers until her eyes burned. Sometimes she would replay her own Titan VII command recording, analyzing every order she gave, looking for flaws. Her goal wasn't pride, it was progress. One night, Captain Varen found her still at the console. The lights were dim and holograms flickered across her tired face. "Still awake?" he asked softly. "Couldn't sleep," Lena said, rubbing her eyes. "I keep thinking about how close we came to losing on Titan VII. I got lucky." Varen shook his head. "No, Commander. You didn't get lucky. You made choices that others couldn't see. That's what leadership is, not perfection but courage under fire." Lena looked up. "Do you think I can really lead a fleet one day?" Varen smiled faintly. "One day? I think you already did." The next test came sooner than expected. During a large-scale training exercise, several Academy fleets were assigned to simulate a real war against the Vor Dominion. Dozens of ships, thousands of cadets, and live data streams. It was supposed to be a learning experience, but for Lena, it became something else. She was placed in command of a small auxiliary fleet, 7 training ships with minimal firepower. Her role was simple: support the main fleet led by Rin. But when the simulation began, Lena noticed something strange in the data feed. The enemy fleet, controlled by instructors, was adapting too quickly. Their formations shifted in patterns eerily similar to real Vor maneuvers. She realized the simulation wasn't random. It was modeled after an actual Vor battle that humanity had once lost. Rin, confident as ever, charged forward. "Stay back, Ardent," he ordered over comms. "This is a real command test. Don't mess it up," Lena's instincts screamed at her. The pattern was clear. The main fleet was walking into a trap. "Rin, stop advancing," she warned. "They're baiting you into the gravity well." "Relax," he laughed. "They can't adapt that fast. Just cover our flank." Seconds later, the simulated enemy unleashed a pincer assault, surrounding Rin's fleet and cutting off escape routes. Instructors monitoring the test exchanged worried glances. No one had predicted this outcome. Lena acted immediately. "Signal all ships in Group Delta," she ordered. "Redirect power to engines. Form up behind my lead vessel. We'll cut through Sector 4. Her crew followed without question. Lena's small fleet accelerated, using the gravity field to slingshot around the enemy formation. She fired precise bursts at weak points, not to destroy but to distract. Then she transmitted a coded pulse to the main fleet's nav systems, a trick she'd learned while studying old communication algorithms. Rin's ships suddenly received new coordinates. "Who changed our route?" he shouted. Lena's calm voice came over the channel. "Follow it or you'll be destroyed." Rin hesitated, then obeyed. His fleet turned, and at the last possible second escaped the encirclement. When the simulation ended, the instructors were speechless. The system automatically declared Lena Ardent's fleet as the victors. After the exercise, Rin approached her quietly in the hallway. For the first time, he didn't look proud or angry, just thoughtful. You saved my command, he said. You would have done the same, Lena replied. He shook his head. No, I wouldn't have seen it in time. You did. From that day, the mocking tone in his voice disappeared. He started calling her Commander Ardent like everyone else. But it wasn't just humans who noticed her anymore. Deep in Vor-controlled space, signals traveled through encrypted networks. The Vor High Command reviewed every human broadcast, especially the new training simulations that mimicked their tactics. When they intercepted the Titan 7 report and the latest Academy recordings, a name appeared repeatedly: Lena Ardent. The Vor strategist, known as General Korthal, analyzed the data with cold precision. This human child predicts our movements as if she knows us, he said slowly. Unacceptable. Find her. Study her mind. Or eliminate her influence. From that moment on, Lena wasn't just a human legend, she became a Vor priority target. Back at the Academy, Lena continued her studies, unaware of the attention she had drawn from beyond the stars. Captain Varen received a classified message from Central Command and frowned. Looks like your name's on every alien intelligence report now, he said. Lena blinked. Because of the simulations? Because of your success, Varen corrected. The Vor are beginning to adapt to your strategies. That means you've made a real mark. She stared out the viewport at the distant stars. Somewhere out there, the enemy was watching her, learning from her, planning against her. But she didn't feel fear. Instead, she felt a quiet determination. If they're watching, she said softly, then let them learn what humanity really is. Varen nodded. And what's that, Commander? Lena smiled faintly. Adapt, endure, outthink. That night, as the Academy lights dimmed, Lena returned once more to the strategy room. She stood before the holographic map of the known galaxy, the stars glowing like scattered embers. Somewhere in those lights, an invisible war of minds had already begun, and she was ready for it. For she was no longer just the child warrior from Titan 7. She was Commander Ardent, the strategist who would one day command the respect of both humanity and its enemies, and her story was only beginning. Months passed, and Commander Lena Ardent's name became known across the entire Stellar Defense Corps. Her strategies were now part of every training manual, and her Titan 7 defense was studied by officers across dozens of fleets. But Lena herself remained humble. She still worked in the Academy's command center, studying new tactics and running endless simulations. For her, the war was not a chance for glory. It was a test of understanding. She wanted to learn how to end it. Yet far beyond human space, in the dark core of the Vor Dominion, another mind was also studying, not to end the war, but to win it. General Korthal of the Vor sat inside his cold chamber staring at human battle data. His glowing eyes narrowed as he replayed the Titan 7 footage again and again. Every move, every decision Lena had made was analyzed. This human child, Korthal said slowly, thinks like one of us. But she uses chaos to mask her logic. Another Vor officer hissed, we can crush her with numbers. Our fleets outmatch theirs 10-1. Korthal shook his head. Numbers are nothing against one who turns weakness into strength. We will break her by turning her own brilliance against her. He turned to his aides. Prepare the invasion of SciFi-Prime. It is time humanity learns that strategy cannot save them forever. On Earth's orbiting Academy station, Lena was awakened in the middle of the night by an urgent call. The red alert sirens echoed through the metal halls. Commander Ardent to Central Command. Priority 1. She rushed to the operations deck, her boots clanging against the floor. The holomap showed a cluster of red signals blinking across the Cynos sector. Enemy movements converging from multiple systems. Captain Varen stood near the main console, grim-faced. The Vor are launching a full-scale invasion, he said. SciFi-Prime is their main target. Our communication links are jammed and the central fleet is scattered. Lena studied the data. It's not just an invasion, she murmured. It's a trap. They want to isolate our fleets and crush them one by one. Varen nodded. You see it too. Unfortunately, High Command can't respond in time. The Vor are cutting through our lines faster than we can regroup. He turned toward her. Lena, you've seen more Vor patterns than anyone. Can you stop them? She didn't answer immediately. Her hands rested on the console as her mind raced through possibilities. Signal delays, fleet speeds, gravitational fields, warp routes. Then she looked up, her eyes steady. Yes, she said quietly. But I'll need full access to the communication grid. Varen hesitated. That's against protocol. Only Admiral-level officers can. Lena met his gaze. If we follow protocol, humanity will lose this war. Varen exhaled slowly, then gave a small nod. Do it, Commander. The command center came alive. Lena connected the scattered ships through short-range pulses, using frequency patterns that Vor sensors couldn't track. It was risky, but it worked. Her calm voice spread across the fleet channels. All units, this is Commander Ardent. Communication blackout is in effect. Follow my vector signals and regroup under Code Unity Protocol. If you hear this voice, you are not alone. Pilots and captains across the sector recognized her name and obeyed without hesitation. Her reputation had already reached even the farthest patrol ships. Through her coordination, 20 small fleets began moving in perfect sequence, like stars shifting into formation. She guided them with quiet precision. Fleet Delta, converge at point 49. Epsilon, reinforce Sector East. Keep energy signatures low. The Vor can't hit what they can't see. Varen watched the map as blue signals began to regroup, pushing back the spreading red enemy icons. You're making order out of chaos again, he said softly. Lena didn't look up. It's not order, sir. It's trust. Meanwhile, on the Vor flagship, General Korthal watched as his perfect plan began to crumble. Impossible, he hissed. Their ships are moving as one, even with disrupted communication. How are they coordinating? A Vor tactician answered. They follow a central code pattern, but the signal changes too quickly for us to intercept. Korthal leaned closer to the screen. Show me their command signature. The data flickered, then revealed one signal repeating across all human ships. Ardent Unity. The general's eyes narrowed. So the child commands them all. Back at the human command deck, Lena's concentration was absolute. Hours passed and she barely moved. Every fleet formation she called out countered a Vor move perfectly. Even when ships were destroyed, their sacrifice slowed the enemy just enough for others to survive. But it was exhausting. Her vision blurred and her voice grew hoarse, yet she continued. The lives of thousands depended on her calm. At one point, Captain Varen tried to step in. Lena, take a break. You've been at this for 16 hours straight. She shook her head. If I stop now, they lose coordination. The Vor are adapting. I have to stay ahead. Varen sighed but didn't argue. He knew her focus could not be broken. The battle for Sinos Prime reached its peak after 2 days. The Vor flagship launched its final wave, a massive dreadnought fleet intended to crush all remaining resistance. Human forces were on the edge of collapse. Lena stood silently before the flickering holomap. Her hands trembled, but her eyes burned with determination. Then she saw it, the flaw. The Vor dreadnoughts were advancing in a perfect V-shaped formation, powerful but rigid. If one link broke, the entire pattern would collapse. But to reach that weak point, a small group would have to enter the center, a near-suicidal maneuver. She tapped her comms. Captain Varen, I have a plan. He frowned. You want to attack the center? That's madness. It's not madness, she said softly. It's human unpredictability. They'll never expect it. Varen looked at her, then smiled grimly. Then let's give them something to remember. The Unity fleet moved as one. Lena's flagship led the vanguard, diving straight toward the core of the Vor formation. Enemy plasma fire lit up space like fireworks, but the humans pressed forward. Hold course, Lena commanded. We break the spine, not the shields. Her timing was perfect. At the critical moment, she ordered half the fleet to shift power from weapons to engines, turning the human formation into a spear of light that pierced through the center of the Vor dreadnought line. The Vor were caught off guard. Their formation collapsed as ships collided and signals failed. Varen's voice echoed across the comms. They're retreating. Commander, you did it. But Lena didn't smile. Her eyes stayed on the fading red lights. No, sir. We survived. That's all, for now. When the smoke of battle cleared, human fleets across 12 sectors began receiving her final coded message. Unity protocol complete. Sector secured. Maintain formation and rebuild. Across the network, captains and soldiers cheered. Her calm voice had guided them through chaos once again. The legend of Commander Ardent grew stronger than ever. In the days that followed, messages poured in from across the colonies. Letters of gratitude, honor requests, and even poems written by soldiers who had never met her. But Lena stayed silent. She didn't seek fame. She only stared at the names of the fallen, stored in her datapad. Each name, she promised, would not be forgotten. Weeks later, during a ceremony aboard the capital ship Resolute Dawn, High Command awarded her the Medal of Galactic Valor. Generals and admirals stood in salute as she walked onto the stage. A hush fell over the hall. She looked so small next to the towering officers, yet her presence filled the entire room. The admiral spoke clearly. In an hour of darkness, when fleets fell and hope was fading, one voice rose from the static and united us all. Humanity stands today because of Commander Lena Ardent. The applause was thunderous, but Lena only bowed her head humbly. I didn't do it alone, she said softly. Every soldier who fought, every pilot who believed, they made the difference. I just gave them a direction. That night, as stars glimmered outside the ship, Captain Veron found her on the viewing deck. You changed the war today, he said. She shook her head gently. No, sir. The war's just changing me. He smiled faintly, still humble even after saving 12 fleets. Humility keeps me human, she replied. She looked out into the endless dark. Somewhere out there, she knew General Corathal was still watching, still planning, but she wasn't afraid. She had seen humanity at its strongest, united, determined, and alive. And if the Vor thought they had faced her best, they hadn't seen what came next. For Lena Ardent, the turning tide was only the beginning of a greater storm, one that would shape the future of both species. Weeks had passed since the Battle of Sinos Prime. The human fleets had pushed back the Vor Dominion for the first time in decades, stabilizing frontier sectors. For the Stellar Defense Corps, it was a moment of cautious relief. Yet even in their celebration, one fact weighed heavily on commanders. The enemy had begun to recognize Lena Ardent and fear her. Deep in Vor-controlled space, aboard the flagship Shadow Spine, General Corathal paced the chamber. His officers stood silently, waiting for orders. He had replayed every human maneuver, studied every tactical choice, and still could not find a flaw in Lena's command. She is a child, hissed one of his lieutenants. Surely we overestimate her abilities. No one of such age can truly command fleets. Corathal's eyes glimmered with cold intensity. A child, perhaps? But she thinks like an elder general. Her decisions are precise, her timing perfect. She adapts faster than our simulations can predict. The lieutenant shivered. Then what do we do, my lord? Corathal's gaze hardened. We acknowledge her. Not because she deserves respect, because she has earned it. We must treat her as a commander, or we will continue to lose. Meanwhile, aboard the human command fleet, Lena worked tirelessly. She reviewed battle reports, coordinated repairs, and studied Vor movement patterns. Despite the calm now settling over her sector, she knew it was temporary. Captain Veron approached her as she studied a holographic display. They've intercepted some of your reports, he said quietly. The Vor are discussing you openly. They are acknowledging you as the commander of the human forces. Lena blinked. Acknowledging me? Veron nodded. Yes, not as a child. Not as a recruit, but as the strategist who outmaneuvered them. They fear your mind more than they fear their weapons. Lena remained silent for a moment, letting the weight of his words sink in. She had never sought recognition. She had only tried to save lives. Yet even the enemy had recognized the same truth. Humanity had a mind they could not break. Across the galaxy, Corathal summoned his top lieutenants for a strategic council. Lena's reputation had reached every corner of Vor space. They could not ignore her brilliance. A massive holographic map filled the chamber. The Vor fleets were positioned in a new formation, one designed to trap human reinforcements. Yet Corathal paused. Even this formation, he murmured, will fail if she anticipates it. An aide hesitated. You want to face her directly, my lord? Yes, Corathal replied. Open a communication channel. I want to speak with her and measure her mind. The Vor fleet's code officers worked for hours to send a secure signal. Finally, a distorted line of communication appeared in the middle of deep space. Commander Ardent. Corathal's voice rumbled through the secure channel. We wish to speak with you. On the human fleet, Lena stared at the communication console. The signal was clear but encrypted, definitely Vor. She felt a chill, but not fear. "Patch them through," she said calmly. The room went silent as the image of the Vor general flickered into view. Korthal was massive, taller than any human by 2 heads with cold, glowing eyes. Yet Lena did not falter. She met his gaze directly. "You are Commander Ardent," he said, his voice a mix of curiosity and respect. "The child who commands the human fleets." Lena's hands rested lightly on the console. "That is correct. You know me." Korthal's eyes narrowed. "We have studied you. Your victories. Titan 7, Cynos Prime, your simulations. You are remarkable." Lena tilted her head slightly. "Thank you." "And you are?" "I am General Korthal of the Vor Dominion. You have caused us significant losses, and yet I respect your skill." For a moment, Lena did not speak. She had faced the Vor in simulations and in combat, but never had she spoken directly to one of their leaders. And yet she felt no fear, only clarity. "I did what I had to do," she said finally. "Your forces were attacking, and my people needed protection. That is all." Korthal paused, his massive frame stiff. Then he said slowly, "You are not only a strategist, you are human." The word carried weight. To Lena, it sounded almost like praise. She nodded. "Yes, that is what we are." Over the next hours, Lena and Korthal spoke at length. It was not a negotiation but an exchange of intellect. They discussed fleet movement, tactics, and predictions. Lena did not reveal all of her strategies. She had learned the value of restraint. But she did not flinch from answering his questions. "Your fleet adapts too quickly," Korthal said. "I expected rigidity. Instead, you are unpredictable." "Unpredictability is humanity's strength," Lena replied. "We learn, adapt, and endure. That is why you cannot predict us completely." Korthal's glowing eyes softened ever so slightly. "You are the first human I have met who can truly be called a commander." Lena felt a strange mix of pride and unease. She had never sought recognition, especially not from the enemy. Yet even Korthal's acknowledgement carried a lesson. Humanity's greatest strength was in the mind, courage and adaptability of individuals. Meanwhile, across the human fleet, news of the communication spread. Officers and soldiers alike were amazed. The enemy, who had once treated humans as unpredictable pests, now openly recognized the child who commanded the fleet. Even Captain Varen shook his head in disbelief. "They are acknowledging her," he said quietly. "Not as a human child, but as a true commander. That is rare, even among their own kind." Lena did not seek glory. She returned to her work immediately, studying the next movements of Vor scouts and supply ships. Her mind was already on the next step, predicting the enemy's adaptation to her presence. The conversation with Korthal was not the end of the acknowledgement. Vor communications officers analyzing battle reports and human transmissions began to repeat her name among their ranks. Ardent, commander of humans, adaptable, unpredictable, dangerous. Even junior Vor officers began to fear her. In their war colleges, instructors used her tactics as lessons, not just of what humans could do, but of how one mind could alter the course of a war. Lena's mind, once only recognized by humans, now shaped the strategies of her enemies. That was a responsibility she did not take lightly. Back on Earth's orbiting Academy station, Lena worked late into the night. Holographic maps of multiple sectors floated before her. She traced Vor routes, calculated possible ambush points, and refined her fleet formations. Captain Varen approached, carrying a small cup of synthesized tea. He handed it to her without a word. Lena took it with a faint smile. "You are changing this war," he said softly. "Not with weapons, but with thought." Lena looked at him. "It is not me alone. Every captain, every pilot, they all contribute. I only guide them," Varen nodded. "Still, they are beginning to see humanity through your eyes, not as weak or chaotic, but as brilliant. That is no small thing." She set the tea aside. "Then we must ensure our brilliance is used wisely. One misstep could cost thousands of lives." In the following days, Lena implemented a new doctrine across the human fleets. It was simple yet effective. Trust the mind, but protect the body. Units were given autonomy within a framework she devised, allowing flexibility while maintaining coordination. The results were immediate. Vor scouts expecting rigid responses found human fleets unpredictable and resilient. Skirmishes were won without massive loss of life. The tide of war, once in the enemy's favor, was slowly shifting, and throughout it all, Lena remained focused. The accolades, the fear she inspired in the enemy, the whispers of legend, none of it distracted her from her mission. One quiet evening, Captain Veron found her on the observation deck, staring at the stars. "They are acknowledging you," he said. "Even the enemy calls you commander." Lena nodded slowly. "Yes, but acknowledgement alone does not win battles." "True," Veron replied. "But it means they see us differently. They fear us. They respect us. That is the first step in changing the war." She looked out at the endless galaxy. Somewhere, Korathal and his fleet were watching, learning, and planning. "And we will be ready," she said quietly. "They recognize us. Now they will see what humanity can do when we fight together." For the first time, Lena allowed herself a small thought of pride, not for herself, but for her species. Humanity, once underestimated across the galaxy, had proven that courage, intelligence, and adaptability were forces even the mightiest enemy could not ignore. And somewhere deep in Vor space, a general whispered her name in both awe and fear. Commander Ardent, the human mind that commands the stars. Years had passed since the decisive battle of Sinos Prime. Humanity's fleets had grown stronger, more coordinated, and wiser from the lessons Commander Lena Ardent had taught them. Her name was no longer just whispered among soldiers. It was honored across the galaxy, and yet Lena herself had not changed much. She remained small in stature, quiet in demeanor, and calm under pressure. What had grown, however, was the weight of responsibility she carried, and the legacy she had begun to shape. The Stellar Defense Corps had changed its doctrine based on Lena's strategies. Every new recruit studied her Titan VII defense, her simulations at the command training fleet, and the Unity protocol she had implemented during the Vor invasions. The message was clear. Humanity's greatest weapon was its mind, not its size or strength. Young cadets walked the training halls, looking up at portraits of heroes past. Among them was Lena's own image, not as a child, not as a recruit, but as a commander. Underneath her portrait, a plaque read, "She was small, but her mind commanded stars." Cadets whispered to each other as they passed. "That's the child who led fleets. She's the one who made the Vor respect humanity. And she did it before she was even a teenager." Despite the fame and honor, Lena remained focused on the work that mattered. She spent hours coordinating fleet patrols, repairing outposts, and training new officers. To her, victory was not the applause of others. It was the safety of those under her care. One morning, Captain Veron approached her with a small, battered datapad. "You have a message from Vorspace," he said. Lena raised an eyebrow. "From them?" Veron nodded. "Encrypted, highly secure. They requested it be delivered directly to you." Lena took the datapad cautiously. Opening the message, she found words from General Korathal himself. Despite their history of conflict, the tone was respectful. "Commander Ardent, your actions have reshaped the galaxy. Your people are unpredictable, clever, and resilient. I acknowledge your command and I respect your mind. May our future encounters test us both, but always in fairness." Lena stared at the message, her lips pressing into a thin line. She did not smile. She did not laugh. Instead, she felt a quiet satisfaction, not in recognition, but in the fact that humanity had become a force to be reckoned with. Humanity's influence continued to grow. Outposts once isolated became connected hubs of communication, trade, and defense. Colonies learned to share resources, knowledge, and tactics more efficiently than ever before. Lena's Unity protocol was implemented galaxy-wide, allowing human fleets to adapt in real time, even when enemy forces attempted surprise attacks. Lena watched this growth quietly. Every time a new fleet captain reported success, every time a colony survived a Vor scouting raid, she felt a sense of pride that went deeper than medals or honors. This was the real legacy of humanity, not fear, not power, but the will to survive, adapt, and rise higher than anyone expected. Years later, during a ceremonial gathering on the orbital capital of Sol System, Lena was invited to speak to cadets from every corner of human space. Hundreds of young faces, eager and bright-eyed, waited for her words. She stepped onto the stage, her uniform pressed but her demeanor calm. For a moment, silence filled the hall. Then she spoke, softly but with clarity. Humanity has faced enemies who thought us weak, small, or predictable. Yet we endure, we adapt, and we rise. Every fleet, every colony, every life counts, and every human has the potential to do great things no matter their age, size, or experience. Never forget that. The cadets erupted in applause, some with tears in their eyes. Lena stepped back, letting them absorb her words. She did not need praise. She had already seen the results of her guidance across the galaxy. That night, as the sun set over Earth's horizon, Lena stood on the observation deck of the Resolute Dawn II. The stars sparkled in silence, distant yet familiar. She thought of Titan 7, of the young cadets she had once led, and of the countless human lives she had helped protect. Captain Varen joined her, as he often did. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Regret?" Lena repeated, her gaze fixed on the stars. "No. Every decision, every risk, every sleepless night, it was worth it. Because humanity learned to trust itself. Because we proved we are capable of more than anyone imagined." Varen nodded. "And the Vor? Do you think they will ever truly understand us?" Lena smiled faintly. "Maybe, but even if they don't, it doesn't matter. They acknowledge us already, and someday that acknowledgement will change everything." The years brought new challenges. 4 commanders attempted surprise raids. Rogue factions threatened peace in outer colonies. But wherever there was danger, Lena's doctrine guided humanity. The Unity Protocol allowed humans to respond with precision and creativity, saving thousands of lives. Her strategies became legendary not just among humans, but across alien civilizations who observed humanity's growth. Some enemies feared her, some respected her, and some sought to study the human approach to leadership and adaptability. And throughout it all, Lena never stopped learning. She still spent hours at her console, plotting, simulating, and teaching. She understood that leadership was not about glory, but about preparation, so that when the galaxy changed, humanity would survive and thrive. Decades later, a human delegation traveled to Vor Prime, a peaceful mission for diplomacy. In their council hall, portraits of military leaders from every species adorned the walls, and there, among alien generals, hung a portrait of Lena Ardent. The plaque beneath it read, "Commander Lena Ardent, the child who commanded humanity and earned the acknowledgement of our species. May her legacy remind all leaders that courage, intellect, and humanity know no bounds. Even among her former enemies, her story inspired respect. It was proof that greatness could rise from anywhere, even from a small child in a universe filled with giants." Back aboard the orbital fleet station, Lena stood once more on the observation deck. Around her, humans prepared for new explorations, new battles, and new discoveries. She thought of all the cadets she had trained, all the fleets she had coordinated, and all the victories won through intellect, courage, and unity. "Humanity is more than weapons," she said quietly to herself. "We are more than our fears, our weaknesses, or the doubts of others. We endure, we adapt, we rise." Captain Varen joined her in silence. Together they watched the stars shimmer like scattered embers. "And someday," Lena whispered, "they will remember this lesson in every corner of the galaxy. Humanity is never to be underestimated." As the fleet prepared for another journey beyond known space, the legend of Commander Lena Ardent continued to grow. Young recruits studied her actions, veterans followed her doctrines, and even former enemies remembered her name with a mixture of respect and awe. She had started as a child mocked by her peers. She had grown into a commander whose mind commanded fleets and whose choices shaped the course of wars. But beyond medals, honors, or enemy acknowledgement, Lena's greatest achievement remained simple and human. She had inspired hope, courage, and unity, showing the galaxy what humanity truly was capable of. And among the stars, the memory of the child warrior who became commander would endure forever.